So we're starting with Kilayim over here. Kilayim, we are
I
at
am, yeah,
Gimel Zion.
that is correct.
Gourd in vegetable as as vegetable, but in grain it is given a bedrova. If one field was sown with grain and he wished to plant it in a row of gourds, it is given 6 handbreadths for tending it. And if it grew, it must uproot in front of him. Rabbi Yoshi says it is given 4 cubits to tend it. And they said to him, "Do you treat this more stringently than vine?" He said to them, "We find this to be more stringent than vine, since a single vine is given 6 handbreadths to tend it, but a single gourd is given a bedrova." Red Meir says in the name of Rebbe El, wherever there are 3 gourds in the Beit Sar, you may not bring into the Beit Sar any seed. Rebbe Yosef HaKotev Ephrati said in the name of Rebbe Shmuel, whenever there are 3 gourds in the Bet Kor, you may not bring into the Bet Kor any seed. Karachat in a vineyard, Beit Shammai says 24 cubits. Beit Hill says 16 cubits. The Machal of a vineyard, Beit Shammai says 16 cubits, but Beit Hill says 12 cubits. What is a charat of a vineyard? A vineyard that has become bare in the middle. If it is less than 16 cubits, one may not sow seeds there. If it is 16 cubits, it is given tillage space, and one may sow the rest. What is the machal of the vineyard? Between the vineyard and the fence, if there are not 12 cubits there, he may not bring seeds there. And if there were 12 cubits, he is given its tillage space, and he may sow the rest.
Okay, so that continues straight on into Mishnah Gimel, where Rabbi Yehuda says, no, no, no. What you just spoke about between the vineyard and the fence, that's called Enze Ele Gadera Kerem. That's called the fence of the vineyard, right? And
Mm.
what he's saying is that you don't. He's saying that you don't need 12 amas over there. You just need your regular four amas, right? You just need 4 amas as you would normally need with a vineyard, and then you can sow the rest between the vineyard and the fence with other seeds. Okay. Okay, so what is this mechol hakerim that Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai were disagreeing about? And the halacha is that you need 12 amas in order to plant other species inside there. Bein shnei kramim. If you've got two separate vineyards, then that's the space that you need 12 amas in between. Ezehu gader, between two vineyards. Now, basically, everyone else would say to Rabbi Yehuda, no, 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 no. That space between two vineyards, that's a karachat hakerem that you need 16 amas in between. Okay, so that's and the halacha obviously follows the Tanakama. Ezehu gader. What is considered a fence in terms of the mechol hakerem that we spoke about in the previous Mishnah? How do you define it? It's as we normally define a fence. Shehu gavor asarat tfachim. It has to be at least 10 tfachim high in order to constitute a fence, and that we find consistently in Erevin as well. By sukkah, you need 10 tfachim to be a wall in your sukkah. So 10 tfachim is the magic number to constitute a mechitza. Okay. The charetz, and what's a ditch? That's also consistent. Shehu amok asara v'rachav arba'a. Also, by the way, we had a fence separating in Peah. So we have, mechitza pops up in lots of different places. We need 10 tvachim to separate between different things. And also a ditch is enough to separate between if it's 10 tvachim deep and 4 tvachim wide. Okay. Mishnah Daled, mechitzas hakanim. So let's say you've got a bamboo fence. Right, you're sticking bamboos into the ground and making a fence like that. How close do they have to be to constitute a fence? That's again our standard lavud. Im ein ben kane lechaver shalosha tfachim. 3 tfachim is our lavud, exactly like we have with sukkah. That's not just a chiddush by sukkah. Lavud is something that applies also by kilayim. Okay, kadeshi ikanes hagedi, that which is basically the space that a goat would be able to get through. Okay. Hooray, zok mechitza. This is fine as a mechitza. Gadesh and nifratz ad eser amos. So now let's say you've got a fence and there's a break in the fence that's up to 10 amos wide. We consider it hooray hu kapesach. That's like a doorway, and we look at it as if the fence is continuing through those 10 amos, those less than 10 amos. Right? So you can still plant directly opposite each other, with the fence in between, because you've got a fence there, and that looks just like an opening in the fence, and that's it. However, If the break is more than 10 amas, then it's no longer a doorway, and you've got to keep a spacing of 4 amas between the vineyard and whatever else you want to plant on the other side. Okay. But again, keneged hapirza asur. It's only opposite the gap. Wherever the fence actually is, you can plant right up to the fence. No problem. Nifritzu bo pratzos harbe. If there are lots of breaks in the fence, okay, now you got to say, is this actually a fence or is this just like a dotted line?
Uh-huh.
Nifritzu bo pratzos harbe. Im ha'omed meruba ala parotz. If the standing area is more than the open area, then it's still considered a valid fence, and you're mutar to plant along the whole length. It's just a fence with a lot of openings. Um, but if it's the
Wait,
other way, parrots
I want to
maruba
get
la omed, huh?
I want to get that straight. If the standing fence is more than
Yeah, so if you've got a majority of standing fence, then it's a fence with a lot of openings.
that's all, even if it's more than
But
10
if you
feet.
have a lot of openings with a bit of fence in between, which is the last case over here, keneged apirza asur, then it's no longer considered one contiguous fence. You've just got a whole bunch of separate little fences, in which case where the fences are actually placed, you can still plant up to them, but where they're gaps, there's no fence there, and therefore you have to keep your 4 amas. Okay, Mishnah, hey. Hanotea shura shel chamesh gefanim. Okay, now this is where there's an interesting machlokes between Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai, where you have a kula of Beis Hillel, which turns out to be a chumrah as well. Okay, so now this is the definition of what is called a kerem, a vineyard. Okay, and Beis Shammai are machmir about what's considered a vineyard, up to one, even one row of grapes of grapevines, if there are 5 of them. Hanotea shura shel chamesh gefanim, Beis Shammai omrim kerem. Doesn't matter if how they're planted. If you got five grapevines, that's called a kerem. What's the difference between a kerem and just an individual vine? Is if you just got an individual grape plant, you only need to keep 6 tvachim
Uh,
space, right? In order to keep away from it. Once you've got a grapevine, it's now you need daled amas. You need to keep a much bigger space from a vineyard, and that's the difference we're talking about over here. So Beis Hillel say, nah, this is not called a vineyard until Achi Yusham Shtei Shuros. You need to have 2 rows, right? So like 2 and 3 would be considered a vineyard according to Beis Hillel. So it's got to have depth, not just length. Okay.
yeah.
Lefichach. So that's a kula in terms of how far you have to plant away from the vineyard. But now watch it turn into a chumrah. Lefichach hazareya arba amos shebekerim. So now, if somebody goes ahead and violates the Kilayim, the Kilaya Kerim, and you remember Kilaya Kerim is it actually causes an Isser Hana. It's the one form of Kilayim that you may not have any benefit from. All other forms of Kilayim you're allowed to benefit from. Like if you have a mule, okay, you have a mule and you can work your mule. If you have if a guy went and created a hybrid fruit, you're allowed to eat that fruit. Kilaya Kerim? No. It has to be burned or buried. I can't remember, but we'll find out. Okay. So Kilaya Kerim is Asr. And if somebody say plants some wheat within the 4 amas of a vineyard, now it's going to destroy part of the vineyard. But how much of the vineyard is it going to destroy? So according to Beis Shammai, Kidesh Shura Achas, only 1 row gets destroyed. Because assuming that the rows are more than 4 amas apart, which they usually are, okay. So because only 1 row constitutes the kerem, all you've done is you've destroyed that 1 row of the kerem, but the row after it is fine. You don't have to worry about it. It's not. That's separate. However, Beis Hillel omrim kidesh shtei shuros. It's only a vineyard by virtue of the fact that there are 2 rows. So therefore, if a person planted a wheat seed inside the daled amas of the vineyard, then not just the first row, but the second row as well becomes us, because because that's what the definition of the vineyard is. If it weren't for that second row, it wouldn't be a vineyard, and therefore the second row must also be destroyed. Okay.
All right. Daled Hey. I mean, I'm no, stop. Aleph Hey.
The Aleph Vav.
No, Aleph Vav. I'm sorry. The wolf and the dog, the wild dog and the fox, goats and deers, mountain goats and ewes, the horse and the mule and the donkey, the ass and the wild donkey, though they resemble one another, are Kilayim with one another. Um, if one may not bring a tree onto a tree, vegetable onto a vegetable, nor a tree onto a vegetable, or vegetable onto a tree. Rabbi Yehuda permits vegetables onto a tree. And one may not plant vegetables in the stump of a sycamore tree. One may not graft root into white cassia because it is a vegetable onto a tree. One may not plant a fig tree shoot into a cistus in order to cool it. And one may not insert a vine shoot into a melon in order to water it because it is a tree unto a vegetable. One may not put gourd seed into a mallow in order to preserve it because it is a vegetable into a vegetable. Okay.
Hey,
Um, yeah.
hey.
Oh, yeah. Hey, hey. If a person exchanges with the poor, that of his is exempt, and that of the poor is liable. If two received a field for sharecropping, this one gives the other his share of Maisa Ani, and this one gives the other his share of Maisa Ani. If a person receives a field to reap, he must not take likit, shikha, peah, and Maisa Ani. Rabbi Yehuda said, when he received it from him for a half, a third, or a quarter, but if he said to him, one third of what you reap is yours, he's permitted to take likit, shikha, peah, but not Maisa Ani. If a person sells his field, the seller is permitted, but the purchaser is forbidden. A person may not hire workers on condition that his son will gather after him, and he who does not allow the poor to gather, or he allows one or not another, or he adds one of them, robs the poor of such a person, it is stated, removes not the landmark of those who came up. Olin. And the sheaf that the workers forgot, but the owner did not forget, that the owner forgot, but the workers did not forget, or the poor stood before it, or they covered it with stubble, then this is not shikha. Okay. On to Nida. Nida. Okay. Test 5. 7 detergents are applied to the blood stain: raw saliva, split between water, urine, nesivorus, kimnunia, and aslag. One immersed the garment and prepared taros upon it. If he applied the 7 detergents to the stain and it did not come out, it is a dye. The taros are tahor, and he need not immerse the garment. If the stain came out or dimmed, it is a blood stain, and the taros are tame, and it is necessary to immerse the garment. One must scrub the stain with 3 times with each and every one of the detergents. If one of the applied to these detergents of their sequence, or he applies all 7 detergents simultaneously, he not accomplished anything.
Um,
For any woman who has a fixed period of time, her time suffices for her. And these are the fixed period. She yawns or sneezes, and she feels pain in the area of her navel or in her lower abdomen, or she streams blood, or a type of shivering takes hold of her, and so too familiar symptoms. If she establishes for herself any of these symptoms 3 times, it is a fixed period. As she was accustomed to
well,
experience,
stop.
did I go too far? Did I skip something?
That's no, that's it. I think you might have skipped a page. Excuse me. I think you might have skipped a page in the middle of one of the Mishnayos. But we finished at the end of Mishnah Ches. It's okay. We were talking about the different the different Samamanim, but it's okay. We're good. Let's move on to Kalim. Okay.
We have test of Aleph. Test diet. No, test diet. Aleph.
That is, I know.
No, test Vav.
It's
Oh
like
my God.
it's 16.
Yeah, 61. Any wooden utensil that broke into 2 parts is tahor, except for a folding table, a variety platter, and the folding bench of a household. And Yehuda says also the Maggis and the Babylonian code are the same as they. At what point do wooden utensils become susceptible to the common tumah? A bed and a cradle became tummy when they smooth them with the skin of a fish. If we decided not to smooth them, they are tummy right away. But Meir says a bed becomes tummy from when one weaves it 3 bottom into it. Wooden baskets become susceptible to tumor from when the craftsman secures their rims and trims them, but those made of strips of palm leaves, even though he did not trim them from the inside, are tummy since they are thus kept. A reed basket becomes susceptible to tumor when he secures the trim and trims it and finishes fastening its high hanging cord. A case for holding flax and a case for holding cups, even though he did not trim from them the inside, they are tame since they are kept thus kept. Small sifters and women's baskets are susceptible to tumor from when the craftsman secures their rims and trims them. Large baskets and large rims are susceptible when he makes two coils around the circumference. The screen of a sifter, a sieve, and a pan of balance are susceptible to tumor but when he makes one coil around the circumference. A basket is susceptible from when he attaches two rings around the circumference, and the strap basket from when he attaches one ring to it.
Okay.
Okay, and we are on to
June verb base.
Sanhedrin. Okay, verb base. When he was approximately 10 cubits from the stony place, they heard him confess. It is the practice of those who are executed to confess, because anyone who confesses has a share in the world to come. For so we find concerning Achan that Yeshua said to him, "My son, please give honor to the God of Israel and render confession to him." And Achan answered Yeshua and said, "I have sinned, thus have I done, that have I done." From where do we know that his confession brought him atonement? Because it says, and Yeshua said, "Why have you troubled us? Hashem shall trouble you on this day, and on this day you are troubled, but you will not be troubled in the world to come." If he does not know how to confess, say, "Let my death be an atonement for all my sins." Rabbi Yehuda says if he knows that he is the victim of a plot, he should say, "Let my death be an atonement for all my sins except for this one." And they said to him, "If so, everyone will say it in order to clear himself." When he was 4 cubits from the stoning place, they removed his clothing. They cover a man in front and a woman both in front and back. These are words of Rabbi Yehuda, but the comments say a man is stoned unclothed and a woman is stoned unclothed. And a woman is not stoned unclothed. The stoning place was elevated twice the height of a man. One of the witnesses shoves him by his hips. If he falls upon his chest, he is turned onto his hips. If he dies from this, it is sufficient. If not, the second witness takes the stone and throws it upon his chest. If he dies from this, it is sufficient. If not, his stoning is by all of Israel, as it is stated, the hand of the witness shall be upon him first to put him to death, and the hand of the entire nation afterward. All those who are stoned are hanged. These are the words of Rabbi Eliezer. The sages say no one is hanged except for the blasphemer and the idolater. A man is hanged facing the people and a woman facing the gibbet. These are the words of Rabbi Eliezer. But there's a comment saying a man is hanged but a woman is not hanged. Said Rabbi Eliezer to them, "Did not Shimon ben Shattak hang women in Ashkelon?" They said to him, "He hanged 80 women, and one may not try even two in one day." How do they hang him? They sink a post into the ground with a beam protruding from it. He places his two hands upon one, one upon the other, and hangs him. Rabbi Yossi says the post is leaned against the wall, and he hangs him in the way that butchers do. They release him immediately. If he is left overnight, this constitutes a transgression of a negative commandment, as it is stated, "And you shall not leave his body hanging overnight, but you shall bury him on that day. For one who is hanged is like a curse to Hashem." This is to say, why is the person hanged? Because he blasphemed Hashem, and thus the name of Hashem is profaned.
Okay.
Okay, so Meir. Okay, and we are on to Sukkah. Okay, Gimel Dalet. Rishmael says one is required to take 3 myrtle twigs, 2 willows, 1 lulav, and 1 etrog. If even if one are nipped and one not nipped, not nipped. Reb Tarfon says even if all 3 are nipped. Reb Kiva says just as a single lulav and single etrog, so too only a single myrtle and a single willow. A stolen or withered etrog is invalid, and an asherah or a condemned city is invalid. Of orla is invalid. Of one of defined truma is invalid. Of undefiled truma is not to be taken, but if one did take it, it's valid. Of demai. Beit Shammai declares it invalid. Beit Hillel declares it valid. Ma'aser Sheni in Yerushalayim, it shall not be taken, but if one did take it, it's valid. The scabs covered most of it, or if its nipple was removed, if it was peeled, or if it was split, or it was perforated, even the slightest part was missing, it's invalid. If scabs covered its lesser part of the stalk is missing, or perforated when nothing was missing, it is valid. An Ethiopian esrog is invalid. If green as a leek, Meir declares it is valid, and Rehuva invalid.
Okay.
I was thinking this morning, this is like, I'm supposed to be like